I heard her voice at 6 in the morning, soft, familiar, coming from our bathroom. My husband David was supposed to be getting ready for the gym, but instead, he was whispering into his phone. "I can't talk right now. I miss you too." I stood there in our bedroom, frozen, my hand still holding the coffee cup I'd brought him, the steam rising in slow curls like it didn't know the world had just ended. 3 years, 3 long, aching years we'd been trying to have a baby. 3 years of negative tests. 3 years of my body failing me every month. Or so I thought. I blamed myself. His mother blamed me. The aunties blamed me. Society blamed me. Everyone blamed me. And now this. I thought fertility was breaking our marriage. I thought the stress of trying to conceive was pushing him away. But I didn't know he'd already gone. Piece by piece, day by day, until all that was left was a stranger wearing my husband's face. When he came out of the bathroom, he saw me standing there. He stopped moving, completely, like his body understood before his brain did. He knew I'd heard. He knew the lie had slipped. "Amara, I can explain." But I wasn't listening, not anymore, because something else caught my eye. His gym bag, open on the floor, careless, reckless, like the truth had grown tired of hiding. Bottles were spilling out, black caps, shiny labels. Supplements he never talked about, supplements he swore were just protein. I knelt down slowly, my knees weak, my heart unsteady. I reached inside the bag and picked one up, a small black bottle, half empty, warm from being near his clothes. I turned it over. I read the label. Testosterone booster. Warning, may affect sperm production. My heart didn't break loudly. It broke quietly, like a soft tear in a place no one could see. All this time, all those months of timed intercourse, all those nights I cried on the bathroom floor, all those moments I begged God to fix me. He knew. He let me believe it was me. He let me drown in guilt. He let his family tear me apart while he took something that killed his fertility. My hands trembled. The bottle nearly slipped. "David," I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. "How long have you been taking this?" He looked at the floor, not at me, not at the bottle, just the floor, like the truth was written on the tiles. "It's complicated," he whispered. "No," I said. "It isn't." I could feel my chest tightening, a sharp, twisting hurt rising through me. This wasn't just betrayal. This was cruelty. This was deception wrapped in silence. I sat on the edge of the bed, the mattress dipping under me. I felt empty, hollow, like everything I was had drained out through the soles of my feet. The room felt too quiet, too bright, too sharp. I thought about the countless pregnancy tests, how I'd stared at them until my eyes blurred, how I hid them in drawers so no one would know, how I smiled through baby showers, choking on my own hope, how I defended him whenever someone hinted it might be him, but the truth had been lying in a gym bag. "Why?" I whispered. It was the only word my throat could carry. "Why would you do this to us?" He rubbed his face and sighed. "It made me feel strong again." Strong. That word sliced through me. So my tears, my pain, my shame, my infertility, my marriage, me. I was all collateral damage so he could feel strong. I stared at him, really stared, and finally understood. The man I married was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. I placed the bottle on the bed beside me. My hands were shaking so badly I had to press them against my thighs to steady them. My name is Amara, and this is the story of how I discovered the truth about my marriage, my body, and the man I thought I knew. People say infertility shows you who you are, but what they don't tell you is this. It also shows you who the person beside you really is. I used to think we were on the same side, two people holding hands in the dark, waiting for God to turn the light on. Now I realized I had been standing alone the whole time. He was standing behind me, hiding in my shadow, letting me take all the blame. That morning was the first time I let myself ask a dangerous question. What if the problem was never me? What if my body wasn't the enemy? What if the real enemy was the silence, the secrets, and the man who chose his pride over our future child? I didn't know it yet, but that question was the beginning of everything, the beginning of the end of my marriage, and the beginning of the truth about me. People think heartbreak arrives in one moment. One shattering sound, one confession, one truth too heavy to hold. But mine didn't come all at once. It came slowly, in pieces, like glass cracking under pressure long before it finally breaks. That morning, after David whispered to the other woman, after I found the testosterone bottle, after the truth wrapped itself around my throat like a cold hand, I couldn't breathe. I needed air, space, distance, anything. So I walked out of the bedroom, out of the house, and onto the balcony. The sky was still dark, not fully morning yet. The world was quiet, too quiet for the noise inside me. I gripped the railing and watched the city waking up. Car lights moving like slow tears. Windows flickering on one by one. People rising to live their lives while mine was falling apart in my hands. And as I stood there, shaking, something inside me opened. A memory I had buried so deep I thought it was gone. The beginning. The time before infertility. Before disappointment. Before blame. Before betrayal. The time when David and I were still us. Still whole. Still in love. We met in the simplest way. On a rainy Thursday, standing beneath the same shop canopy, both hiding from the storm. He laughed when thunder rattled the street. I jumped. He offered me his coat even though we were strangers. I remember thinking he had gentle eyes, warm eyes, safe eyes. Back then, he felt like home. We talked until the rain stopped. Then we kept talking. Days, weeks, months. Laughing through long walks, late night calls, whispered secrets. He made me believe in partnership, in trust, in forever. And that's what hurt the most on the balcony that morning. Not just the affair, not just the supplements, not even the lies. It was the question burning in my chest. When did he stop loving me? When did I become someone it was easy to betray? The truth was, it didn't happen suddenly. It happened slowly, silently, like water wearing down stone. It started after month 6 of trying to conceive, when the doctor said, "You're both healthy, it will happen soon," when hope still tasted sweet. Back then, David would hold me after every negative test. He would kiss my forehead and say, "Next time, babe. We're in this together." But together didn't last long. Month 12, his mother started asking questions. Sharp questions. Questions dipped in poison. Has she gone for a check? Are you sure she's ovulating? Women nowadays wait too long, then wonder why they can't conceive. My sister's daughter got pregnant in the first month. Some women are just blessed. He didn't defend me. Not once. Not ever. That was the first crack. Then came the second, the gym obsession. New powders, new routines, new friends. Less time with me, more time there. The third crack appeared quietly. Late night showers. Phone always face down. Passwords changed. Smiles that didn't reach his eyes. The fourth, when he stopped trying during my fertile window. When he said he was too tired, too stressed, too much on his mind. But I kept pushing, kept hoping, kept believing that all couples go through hard times. I blamed myself for everything. My body, my hormones, my timing, my fear, my age, my tears. I never thought to blame the man who vowed to love me. I didn't know it then, but he was already slipping away, piece by piece, crack by crack, until the man I met under the rain disappeared completely. I stayed on the balcony a long time, breathing in the cold morning air and the truth I wasn't ready to face. Then I heard the sliding door open behind me. "Amara?" he said quietly, his voice soft, careful, like he was approaching a wounded animal. He stepped closer, each footstep echoing through the hollow space between us. "I know what it looks like," he murmured, "and I know you're hurt. Hurt." The word made something flash hot in my chest. Hurt didn't cover it. Hurt was a paper cut. This was a wound carved into bone. "Please," he said softly. "Just listen." But how do you listen to someone whose voice now sounds like a stranger's? How do you breathe beside a man who held your dreams in his hands and crushed them just to feel powerful? He waited for me to speak, to cry, to yell, to beg. But I stayed silent, because silence was safer than the truth rising inside me, the truth that terrified me more than anything else. I didn't know if I still wanted this marriage anymore. I stayed frozen on that balcony, staring out at the waking city. The sun was rising, spilling gold across buildings that felt too bright for a morning like this. My chest felt tight, heavy, like something inside me was collapsing in slow motion. David stood behind me, his presence thick, uncomfortable, like a shadow I no longer recognized. "Amara, please," he whispered. But his voice didn't reach me, not the way it used to, not the way it once wrapped around my heart and made me feel safe. I kept my eyes on the horizon, afraid that if I looked at him, everything inside me would fall apart. Or worse, I'd see a stranger where my husband used to be. I used to imagine this balcony differently, me standing there, holding a mug of tea, watching our child play inside. A toddler, laughing, running, calling, "Mama!" David behind us, smiling, lifting the baby up into the air. That dream was the reason I survived the hardest months, the reason I kept trying, the reason I forgave so much. But dreams can turn into ghosts, and that morning, mine finally did. He stepped closer, not touching me, just close enough that I could feel the warmth of his body. Once comforting, now unbearable. "Amara, I know I messed up. Messed up." That phrase made something inside me twist. Messed up was forgetting to buy milk. Messed up was arriving late for dinner, not taking supplements that killed his fertility while letting me drown in shame, not whispering to another woman at 6 a.m. like she was the one he owed tenderness to. "Talk to me," he said quietly. I closed my eyes, because if I opened them, the dam would break. "Why her?" I whispered. It wasn't planned. The question slipped out like a wound tearing open. He hesitated. The silence stretched so long I felt it tightening around my ribs. "That's not important," he finally said. "Not important." The words echoed through me like a slap. I turned to face him, and for the first time since hearing that voice, I really looked at him. He looked tired, guilty, small, like a man trapped in his own web. "What is her name?" I asked. He lowered his gaze. His throat bobbed. "Amara." "What is her name?" He swallowed hard. "Rachel. Rachel." The name felt cold on my tongue, like metal, like something sharp enough to draw blood. I breathed in slowly, trying to steady myself, trying not to collapse under the weight of it all. "How long?" He didn't look at me when he answered. 8 months. 8 months. Almost a year. Almost the entire time I'd been blaming myself for our empty womb, while he'd been filling his life with someone else. My vision blurred. The world tilted. I reached for the balcony railing to steady myself. "You told me you were working late," I whispered. I was. Sometimes. Sometimes. That meant the rest of the time he wasn't. "How many times?" I asked softly. His jaw tightened. He didn't speak. That was my answer. I nodded slowly, feeling something in my chest go quiet. Not broken, just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes before a decision that changes everything. "Did she know about us trying?" I asked. His eyes flickered with shame. "No, of course she didn't. Men like him never tell the full story. They offer only the parts that make them look like heroes." I wiped my cheeks. I hadn't even realized I was crying. "Amara," he whispered, "I still love you." I let out a breath that was half a laugh, half a sob. "Then why didn't you choose me?" He had no answer. And in that silence, I realized something that should have terrified me, but instead brought me a strange, painful clarity. I wasn't losing him. I had already lost him. Long before this morning. Long before the bottle. Long before the whispers and the lies. And now, I was losing the version of myself who waited, begged, hoped, prayed for love from a man who didn't know what to do with it. I stepped back from him, just one small step, but it felt like reclaiming a piece of my soul. "I need to think," I said quietly. He nodded, but his eyes were afraid. I wasn't afraid. For the first time in a long time, I felt something else rising inside me. Something I hadn't felt throughout the years of trying, the months of tears, the nights of shame, strength. The kind that comes when a woman finally sees the truth. I walked back inside without waiting for him to follow. The apartment felt different. Not smaller, not darker. Just honest. For years, these walls had held my hopes. Now they were holding the truth. And as I closed the balcony door behind me, I realized something simple, painful, and freeing. I walked back into the apartment, leaving David on the balcony with his excuses, his guilt, and the silence he had created. My footsteps felt heavy, like I was walking through thick water. Nothing in the room had changed, yet everything inside me had. The bedroom door was still open, the bed still unmade, the bottle still lying there like a confession he hadn't meant to leave behind. I picked it up again. That small black bottle. It had taken more from me than any human being ever had. It had stolen my peace, my sleep, my confidence, my belief in my own body, my trust in my marriage, my hope of becoming a mother. And all it had taken was a lie, a simple lie that grew roots and wrapped itself around my life. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding the bottle in both hands. My palms were sweating, my heart thudding like it wanted to burst free. I remembered month 10 of trying to conceive, the month I broke down, the month I thought God was punishing me. I had been so sure it was me. I cried in the shower so he wouldn't hear. I blamed my womb, my hormones, my past, my age, anything I could find. I researched diets, herbs, supplements. I tracked every symptom, every twinge. I prayed every night, even when I felt too tired to speak. And through all of it, he let me believe I was the problem. My vision blurred as more memories surfaced, memories that suddenly looked different under the light of the truth. The time he dismissed my suggestion to get his sperm tested. The time he got angry when I asked why he was taking new supplements. The time he brushed off my tears with, "We're just stressed, calm down." He gaslit me. He let me crumble under a weight he created, and then he sought comfort in another woman while I drowned. I set the bottle down and wiped my face. I didn't want to cry, but the tears were coming whether I welcomed them or not. Just then, I heard the balcony door slide open. "Amara?" His voice called softly. I didn't respond. I didn't trust myself to. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. I could feel him looking at me, waiting for me to speak, waiting for something he didn't deserve. "I know you're hurting," he said gently. I let out a breathless laugh. Hurting didn't begin to describe it. "How long were you planning to hide it?" I asked. He stayed quiet, and that silence was another answer. 8 months, I repeated. 8 months you were with her. 8 months you were taking this. 8 months you watched me tear myself apart. He pressed his lips together, guilt flickering across his face. "I didn't want to lose you," he whispered. My head snapped up, the audacity. "You lost me the moment you decided your pride mattered more than our child," I said quietly. "And the moment you let another woman into our marriage." He sat on the edge of the dresser, hands clasped tightly. He looked small, fragile, but I didn't feel responsible for his brokenness anymore. "Tell me the truth, David," I said. "Why her?" He hesitated, then softly, "She listened." I blinked. For a moment, I didn't even understand. "She listened?" I echoed. "Listened to what?" "To me," he whispered. "To my frustrations, my stress, my worries." I stared at him, stunned. I had spent 3 years carrying the emotional weight of infertility alone, and he had been confiding in someone else. "You didn't come to me," I said softly. "You didn't give me a chance to listen." You were overwhelmed, he muttered. And Rachel, she made things easier. Easier? Another stab, another crack. You chose easy over loyal, I said. You chose comforting lies over painful truth. You chose another woman over the wife who fought for you. He bowed his head. I'm sorry, he whispered. The words fell lifeless between us. Empty. Too late. I stood up slowly. Every movement felt like peeling myself out of a life that no longer fit. I need space, I said quietly. Real space. He lifted his head. Fear flashed in his eyes. Amara, please. But I raised my hand. No more talking. No more excuses. No more lies. For once, let me breathe. He didn't follow as I walked past him. He didn't speak. He didn't try to hold me back. He just watched me walk away. The first step toward a truth I had been too afraid to face. I wasn't the broken one. My marriage was. I reached the hallway and placed my hand against the wall, steadying myself. The quiet of the apartment wrapped around me, like a blanket that no longer felt warm. Maybe this was how endings always began. Not with screaming, not with dramatic exits, but with a woman realizing she deserved more than the crumbs she had been given. I wiped my face, inhaled slowly, and whispered to myself, one step at a time, Amara. For the first time in years, I went to the guest room. The room we always said we'd turn into a nursery one day. The room with the soft yellow curtains I chose during a moment of hope. The room where I once imagined rocking a baby to sleep. Now it felt like a museum of dreams that never happened. I closed the door gently behind me and leaned against it, letting the quiet swallow me whole. My chest rose and fell in uneven breaths. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The bed was neatly made, untouched. I sat at the edge and felt the weight of everything settle over me. The lies, the betrayal, the months of self-blame. All of it pressing down so hard it felt like it might crush me. I stared at the empty crib corner. We had planned it out once. A white crib, soft bedding, a mobile with stars. He told me he wanted to paint clouds on the walls. I believed every word because back then, he still spoke to me like I was his future. Now that corner was empty, just a shadow on the wall. A reminder of everything I had carried alone. I pulled my knees to my chest and rested my forehead on them. For a moment, I let myself fall apart. Silent tears, small sobs. The kind of crying a woman does when she has no audience and no strength left to pretend. Why me? Why us? Why this? I didn't have answers, just pain stretching through my ribs. Then another memory surfaced. Month 13 of trying. The month he stopped kissing me first. The month he started pulling away in bed. The month I felt him slipping, inch by inch. I remembered the night I told him I felt broken. He didn't hold me. He didn't reassure me. He just said, maybe your hormones are off. Women your age struggle. Women your age. He threw my age at me like an accusation. Like it was my fault time moved forward. Like he wasn't aging too. I hugged my knees tighter. The pain felt so fresh it was like reliving it. But then, as my breathing slowed, as the trembling eased, another truth rose quietly inside me. I had survived every month alone, every negative test alone, every accusation, every disappointment, every tear alone. and I was still here. Maybe that meant something. Maybe that meant more than I realized. Just then, a soft knock came at the door. "Amara?" David's voice, low, hesitant, as if he didn't know which version of me would answer. I wiped my face but didn't move. He knocked again. "Can I come in?" "No," I said simply. He exhaled sharply through the door. Almost a sigh of someone realizing the ground beneath him had changed. "I just want to talk," he murmured. "There's nothing to talk about," I said quietly. "Not right now." A pause, a long one. Then, "I didn't mean to hurt you." I shut my eyes. That sentence was so small compared to the destruction he caused. "You hurt me every day you lied," I whispered. "And every day you let me blame myself." He didn't respond. Maybe he couldn't. I heard his footsteps retreat down the hallway. I waited until the sound faded completely before opening my eyes again. The guest room suddenly felt different. Not just sad, but honest, real. A place where I didn't have to pretend to be strong. I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. The silence felt softer now, less like a prison, more like a pause, a breath. I didn't know what would happen tomorrow. I didn't know if our marriage could survive this. I didn't know if I even wanted it to. But I did know one thing, something I hadn't let myself admit until that moment. If I could survive the last 3 years, I could survive the truth too. A small strength flickered in my chest, fragile, but real. Maybe this wasn't the end of me. Maybe this was the beginning. I rolled onto my side, staring at the empty space beside me. A space where hope once lived. A space where a crib should have been. A space where a future once waited. And slowly, as if rising from deep water, more memories returned. The countless appointments I went to alone. The nights I held my stomach, praying for a miracle. The mornings I woke up, hoping for a sign. The moments I told myself to be strong, because maybe next month, maybe next time, maybe just one more try. I realized something painful and true. I had been fighting for a child, while he had been fighting for escape. That truth sat heavy in my chest, but it also cleared something inside me. A space to breathe, a space to think, a space to rebuild. When I finally sat up, wiping the last of my tears, I felt the faintest flicker of something I hadn't felt in ages. Control. Not over him, not over the future, but over myself. Whatever happened next, I wouldn't face it as the woman who blamed herself. I would face it as the woman who survived. And surviving, I realized, was its own kind of strength. Serious. The next morning I woke before dawn, not because I slept well, but because my mind refused to stay still. The house felt different in the early light, quiet, heavy, as if it was holding its breath right alongside me. I walked into the kitchen, barefoot, the tiles cold under my feet. My eyes landed on the coffee mugs on the counter. 2 mugs, our routine, our ritual. But today, I made only 1. I stood there listening to the kettle rumble, thinking about the woman I had been yesterday, and the woman I was in this moment. Yesterday, I was breaking. This morning, I was awake. Not healed, not okay, but awake. As the kettle clicked off, I poured the water slowly, watching the steam rise like a quiet promise of something new. I didn't know what that new would look like, but I knew it couldn't look like the life I'd been living. I carried my cup to the dining table and sat down, my hands wrapped around the warmth, my heart wrapped around the truth. David entered the room a few minutes later. His footsteps were cautious, like he was approaching a wounded animal. "Morning," he said softly. I didn't answer, not out of cruelty, but because I had learned silence could be its own kind of power. He sat across from me, clasping his hands together, waiting. "Amara, we need to talk." I looked at him, really looked. The man I had loved, the man I had trusted, the man who had lied. "What do you want to say?" I asked quietly. He swallowed, hard, like the truth was stuck in his throat. "I messed up," he said. "I know that. And I'm sorry." The word sorry floated between us like a feather, light, insubstantial, useless. "Sorry doesn't fix anything," I whispered. He winced. "I know." I stared into my coffee, dark, still, honest. "Why her?" I finally asked. He looked down at his hands. "She listened. She didn't blame me. She didn't make me feel like..." "Like what?" I cut in. "Like trying for a baby was work? Like it was hard? Like it hurt?" He rubbed his face. "That's not what I meant. But it's what you felt." Silence. A silence full of answers. I leaned back in my chair. "Did you ever think about how I felt, David? How I cried in the shower? How I went to appointments alone? How I blamed myself every month while you..." I paused. "While you were blaming me too?" His eyes filled with something. Regret, maybe. Fear, maybe. Shame, definitely. "I was scared," he said. "I didn't want to be the problem. I didn't want to believe anything was wrong with me." I let out a soft, tired laugh. "Instead, you made me believe everything was wrong with me." He closed his eyes. "And the supplements?" I asked. "Did you know what they could do to your sperm?" He hesitated. Too long. Yes," he finally admitted. Something inside me collapsed and straightened all at once. A quiet breaking, a quiet awakening. "You let me blame myself," I whispered. "For 3 years. When all along, it wasn't just me." "Amara, please." "No." I shook my head. "Not today." I stood up. My legs trembled a little, but they held. "I need space," I said. "I need time. And I need honesty. Not the version you give when you're cornered. The version you give when you respect someone." He nodded slowly, as if he finally understood what was slipping from his hands. I walked toward the hallway, my coffee still warm in my hand, my heart a little colder but clearer. Just before turning the corner, I stopped and spoke without looking back. If we're going to rebuild anything, it starts with the truth. All of it. Then I walked away, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt the faint spark of something I thought I'd lost. Myself. I reached the bedroom doorway and paused, looking inside. The bed was unmade, sheets twisted, a physical map of last night's chaos. But instead of feeling broken by it, I felt separate from it, as if I had stepped out of the version of myself who accepted pain as normal. I sat at the edge of the bed, inhaling slowly. The morning light crept in, soft and pale, painting the room in muted gold. A new day, a new truth, and maybe a new Amara. I picked up my journal from the nightstand, a place where I had written dreams, fears, prayers, a place he never read, a place that still belonged to me. I opened to a blank page. My hand hovered above the paper for a long moment before I finally wrote, Day 1. I choose me. Just 6 words. Serious. I didn't leave the house that morning, but I needed distance. Not miles, just air. Space to think without the weight of his footsteps in the next room. So I went to the balcony. The sun had just begun to climb, painting the sky in soft pastels. The city felt half awake, the kind of quiet that makes you believe the world is resetting itself. I wrapped my arms around my chest, not from the cold, but because I finally felt the outline of myself returning. Behind me, the sliding door opened. David stepped out, slow and unsure. He didn't come close. He kept 3, maybe 4 steps between us, the closest thing to respect he'd shown in months. Amara, he said softly, can we talk? Properly this time? I didn't turn around. Talking requires honesty, I said, and I don't know if you're capable of that yet. He exhaled, a long, heavy breath. I'm trying. I finally looked at him. He looked smaller, not physically, but like a man facing the truth of what he'd broken. Then tell me everything, I said quietly. No hiding, no half-truths, from the beginning. He hesitated, the kind of hesitation that tells you the truth isn't small. I ended things with her, he finally said. Before you heard that call, it was already over. My jaw tightened. Why did it start? His eyes dropped to the ground. I felt like a failure. Every month you cried. I felt like I couldn't protect you, couldn't fix it, couldn't give you what you wanted. I shook my head. What we wanted. He swallowed hard. That's the thing. It stopped feeling like we. You were hurting, and I didn't know how to help. So you found someone else, I said, flat. Honest. No emotion left to soften it. He winced. She didn't ask anything of me. She didn't look at me with expectations. She didn't see me as less serious. I never saw you as less, I said. You decided that all by yourself. Wind swept across the balcony, cool and sharp. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said something I wasn't prepared for. I got the test results back last month. My heart stumbled. What test results? He looked up, shame carved into every line of his face. The sperm analysis. I felt my breath catch. You didn't tell me. I didn't know how, he whispered. I didn't want it to be true. My voice trembled. What did it say, David? He closed his eyes, then, barely audible, that I'm the problem. Silence. A deep, ringing silence that stretched between us. I sat down slowly, gripping the balcony railing. Show me, I said. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands, opened an email, and passed it to me. Low count, low motility, fragmentation concerns, recommendations for immediate lifestyle changes. Everything I had feared for myself, everything I had blamed myself for. was written there in black and white under his name. My chest tightened, not with anger this time, with grief. For the years lost, the nights I cried alone, the blame I carried like a second skin. "You let me think it was me," I whispered. "For 3 years." Tears rolled down his cheeks, quiet, unforced, real. "I was ashamed," he said. "I thought you'd leave me if you knew." I shook my head slowly. "You didn't give me the chance to love you through it." He covered his face with his hands, shoulders shaking. For the first time, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel broken. I didn't feel unworthy. I felt strong. I handed the phone back to him. "We are not moving forward," I said softly, "until you learn how to tell the truth the first time, not the last." He nodded, tears still falling. "And David?" He looked up. "This is not just your truth. It's mine, and I'm taking it back." I turned toward the sunrise again, and for the first time in years, it felt like it was rising for me. I stayed facing the horizon, letting the colors shift slowly from pale pink to soft gold. A new day unfolding in front of me. And for once, I wasn't afraid of what it might bring. Behind me, I heard David wipe his face, trying to steady his breathing. But I didn't turn back. Not yet. Maybe not for a while. Because the truth wasn't just out now. It was free. And so was I. I closed my eyes and let the breeze lift a strand of my hair. I imagined the woman I was becoming. Not perfect, not healed, but no longer lost in someone else's shadow. A woman with her own story, her own strength, her own future. When I finally opened my eyes, the city was fully awake. Cars hummed, birds scattered across the sky. Life moved forward, whether I was ready or not. But for the first time in a long time, I felt ready. Whatever came next, rebuilding, separation, forgiveness, or letting go, I would face it with clarity, with truth. The house was quiet after our conversation on the balcony. Too quiet. Not peaceful, just heavy. Like everything unsaid was sitting in the corners watching us. I needed space. Not the emotional kind I'd been begging for silently for years. The real physical kind. Somewhere to breathe without feeling the weight of his guilt pressing against my skin. So I grabbed my keys. David looked up quickly. "Where are you going?" "Away," I said, calm, steady, truthful. For a few hours, his face tensed. "Are you coming back?" I didn't answer immediately. I wanted to choose my words, not react from hurt. "I'm coming back," I said finally. "But I'm not coming back to the same version of this marriage." He looked like the ground had shifted again, and maybe it had. Because I wasn't the woman who carried the blame anymore. I wasn't the woman who begged for scraps of honesty. I wasn't the woman who held everything together alone. I walked out before he could say anything else. Outside, the air felt warm, humming with early morning life. Cars passing, birds cutting across the sky. People living their normal lives, unaware that my universe had tilted. I drove aimlessly at first. No destination, just movement. Then I found myself outside a small cafe we used to love years ago, before trying for a baby turned every part of our lives into a schedule. I sat at a table by the window, ordered tea, and pulled out my journal. For a long time I just stared at the blank page. Then the words began to spill. Who am I without this pain? Who am I without his lies? What do I want? What does healing look like? And finally, Can trust be rebuilt without truth? I didn't have answers, but the questions felt like the beginning of something. As I wrote, I noticed my hands had stopped shaking. My breathing had slowed. My body wasn't bracing for impact anymore. A small strength sat quietly inside me. Not loud, not triumphant, just present. After an hour, I closed the journal and called my sister. She answered on the second ring. "Amara? It's early, are you okay?" I almost said, "I'm fine," out of habit, but I didn't want habit. I wanted honesty. "No," I said softly. "I'm not." Her voice softened. "Tell me." I did. Everything. The call, the affair, the supplements, the test results, the years of hidden truth. She didn't interrupt, didn't gasp, didn't judge. When I finished, she asked one question. "What do you need right now?" Not, "What will you do?" Not, "What about your marriage?" Not, "What about trying again?" Just, "What do you need?" My eyes filled. "I need myself back." "And you will get her back," she said firmly, "one step at a time." For the first time, I believed that. When I returned home, David was sitting on the couch, shoulders hunched, wringing his hands like a child waiting for punishment. He stood immediately. I was worried. "I needed time," I said. "Did you think about us?" "Yes," he swallowed. "And?" I exhaled slowly. This was it. The decision moment. The boundary moment. The moment I chose myself before choosing anything else. "We're not separating today," I said. His shoulders sagged with relief. "But," I added. His body stiffened again. "We are not pretending nothing happened. We are not sweeping this under a rug. We are not skipping steps and rushing back into routine." He nodded, cautious. "I need 3 things," I said. He held his breath. 1. Full transparency. No more secrets. No more protecting my feelings with lies. "Okay," he whispered. 2. Therapy. For you, for me, for us. Real therapy, not apologies wrapped in excuses. He nodded again, slower this time. And 3. I paused, feeling the weight of the moment settle into my bones. "I need to heal without carrying your guilt. That means you take responsibility, not just in words, but in actions." He opened his mouth to speak, but I raised my hand. "I'm not finished." He closed it. "And I need you to understand something. I'm not staying because I'm afraid to leave. I'm staying because I want to see if the truth can rebuild what lies destroyed. But the work starts with you." He blinked rapidly, tears forming again. "I'll do anything," he said. "We'll see," I replied softly. I wasn't being cruel. I was being truthful. For the first time, the truth belonged to me. I walked past him toward the bedroom, leaving him standing in the middle of the living room, a man facing the consequences he created. And as I reached the doorway, I whispered, "This is your last chance to show me the man you want to be." His breath shattered, but I didn't turn back, because part 8 wasn't about him. It was about me, choosing myself against slow-moving storms. Not violent, not loud, but heavy. Heavy, but heavy. Heavy in the way the air feels before rain finally breaks. David kept his distance. Not fearfully, respectfully. He moved softer, spoke quieter, watched me with the eyes of a man who finally understood that his wife was no longer living in the shadow of his choices. And I focused on breathing again. Not the shallow breaths of survival, real breathing, full, steady, mine. On the third morning, I woke before him, not because of pain this time, but clarity. I slipped out of bed and sat at the edge, watching the early light spill across the floorboards. A quiet knowing settled over me. Healing wasn't going to come from him, or us, or the past. It was going to come from me. I reached for my phone and opened a new search. Therapist near me. Infertility recovery therapy. Fertility trauma support. I didn't know which one I needed most, so I chose all three. I booked the first available appointment. It was time. When David woke up, he found me at the dining table with my journal open. He sat across from me, tentative. "Can I ask what you're writing?" I didn't hide the page. I turned it toward him. It read, "The rules for moving forward." His throat bobbed as he swallowed. "Do you want to share them?" I nodded. 1, I read calmly. No more secrets about anything. Not fertility, not fears, not mistakes, not your body, not mine. He nodded quickly, agreed. 2, I continued. No emotional affairs. No friends who comfort you more than your wife. He closed his eyes briefly. I understand. And 3, I exhaled slowly. Truth is the bare minimum now. Effort is the requirement. He whispered, "I won't fail you again." I shook my head gently. It's not about failing me. It's about becoming a man who doesn't run from himself. He looked down, emotional. Later that afternoon, I went for a walk alone. I needed to feel the world again. Not the world through pain, just the world. As I walked through the park, I noticed things I had forgotten to notice. Children laughing, trees swaying, a couple holding hands without tension, the smell of food from a distant vendor. Life continuing as if my heart had not been broken and reassembled in the same week. I sat on a bench and watched a small girl chasing pigeons, her laughter bright and wild. And I felt it. A tiny tug in my chest. Hope. Not for a child yet. Not for a repaired marriage. Just hope for me. I took out my journal again. This time I wrote, "I am not broken. I am healing." By evening, I returned home with a strange combination of heaviness and lightness, like shedding an old skin while still feeling the marks it left behind. David was in the kitchen making dinner. Our dinner. A simple gesture, but one he hadn't made in months. He turned when he heard me. "Hey, I thought maybe we could eat together." I hesitated. The old version of me would have said yes automatically. But the new version of me checked in with herself first. I nodded slowly. Okay. We ate quietly. Not awkward silence. Intentional silence. Healing silence. Halfway through the meal, he cleared his throat. I, made an appointment too, he said softly. For the therapist. I met his eyes. And the supplements? I asked. I've stopped all of them, he said immediately. I threw everything out. I'm taking what the doctor recommended instead. A small part of me softened. Not forgiveness, just recognition of effort. He continued. and I booked an appointment with a fertility specialist for myself. Alone. I need to understand what I did to my body. This time, something in me shifted. A step forward. Not toward him, but toward healing. Good, I said quietly. That's your responsibility. He nodded, accepting it fully. After dinner, he reached out gently, not to touch me, but to offer a small folded note. "What's this?" I asked. "My rules," he said. "For myself." I opened it. It read, 1. Honesty above comfort. 2. Accountability without excuses. 3. Show love through actions, not promises. 4. Heal my body. 5. Heal my mind. 6. Protect our marriage like I should have from the beginning. A soft ache rose in my chest. Not pain, not forgiveness, just humanity. I looked at him, really looked. And for the first time since everything broke, the days that followed didn't look like a movie montage. No smooth healing, no dramatic vows. Just two people sitting with the truth. One learning how to give it, the other learning how to receive, nothing less. I spent more mornings alone than with him, not in anger, but in rebuilding. Reclaiming the parts of myself I'd abandoned while chasing a dream that kept slipping further away. I walked more, breathed more, sat in silence more, listened to the sound of my own heartbeat, steady, present, mine. One evening, a week after the balcony confession, David knocked lightly on the bedroom door. "Amara, can we talk?" I hesitated, then nodded. He stepped inside slowly, as if entering a sacred space. Maybe he finally understood that I was one. He sat on the edge of the armchair, not beside me, respecting a distance I still needed. "I got my follow-up results back," he said quietly. "And I've started treatment. Real treatment." I nodded. "Good." He swallowed. "I also spoke to the therapist. The first session, it hit me hard." I watched him, not with pity, with observation. "For the first time," he continued, "someone made me say out loud that I hurt you, because I was running from myself." I exhaled slowly. There it was, the truth I had been waiting for him to face. Not whispered, not forced. Owned. "I'm not asking for forgiveness today," he said. "I know I haven't earned that, but I'm asking for the chance to keep showing up." I looked down at my hands, steady, not trembling anymore. "Showing up is a start," I said softly, "but it's not the whole journey." He nodded, eyes glassy. "I know." Silence settled between us, but it wasn't sharp this time. It was soft, open, like a window cracked to let in fresh air. I stood and walked to the balcony, the night cool against my skin. He followed but stayed a respectful distance behind. Below us, the city pulsed with life. Lights flickered, cars passed. People moved on with their stories. And I realized my story wasn't ending here. It was just turning a page. "I don't know what the future looks like," I said, watching the city breathe. "I don't know if we'll make it, or if this will be the chapter where we walk separate ways." He stepped closer, careful. "I'll walk wherever you need me to," he whispered. I shook my head gently. "No, David. You walk where you need to. Heal for yourself. Grow for yourself. And if our paths meet again as whole people, then we'll see." He exhaled, a broken but hopeful sound. I turned to face him fully, steady, calm, whole in a way I hadn't felt in years. "I'm not scared anymore," I said softly. "Not of trying, not of losing, not of starting over, not of being alone." A tear slipped down his cheek. "Who are you now?" he asked quietly. I smiled. "A woman who knows her worth." I walked past him back into the living room, closing the balcony door behind me with a soft click, not shutting him out, just choosing myself first. I sat at the table and opened my journal, writing, slowly, deliberately. Day 14. I choose myself, not out of anger, not out of pride, out of truth. And for the first time since everything shattered, I felt something warm bloom inside me. Not forgiveness, not certainty, but hope. Hope for a life where I wasn't shrinking myself to fit into someone else's comfort. A life where I could love, fully, honestly, freely, whether that love stayed or changed shape or found a new home. Whatever happens next, I am not the woman who walked into this story. I am stronger, softer, wiser, whole, and that is enough. If you're trying to get pregnant, and this story felt a little too close to home, go to theinfertilitysecrets.com. Discover the 7 signs your body gives before ovulation, the ones almost no doctor ever explains. And if this story made you feel seen, follow this channel. There are more stories waiting for you. I'm Laura Anderson. Take care of your heart. I closed my journal and let my fingers rest on the cover, feeling the weight of every word I had written these past weeks. This book had carried my breakdowns, my heartbreak, my fears, my rebirth, and now it held my truth. I stood slowly, allowing the quiet of the room to settle around me. Not emptiness, peace. A peace I had fought for, cried for, earned. Healing wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was this, a steady breath, a calm heart, a woman reclaiming her own story. Whatever tomorrow brings, I will meet it as myself, whole, here, enough.